This YouTube channel is presented two by four from, about, with, and around. A human corporeal body-mind complex that's visibly observable in mirrors for an indeterminate duration in space and time, and not of space and time. What is referred to using the English language is thought to be a communication to that which we're not. And that which we are not is temporally temporary. Temporally in the sense temporarily in time, and at the same time not of time. These human corporeal manifestations could be construed as local units of qualia consciousness energy manifestations. Or not permanently so. And they're neither impermanently so. They are not permanently so, nor are they permanently so. Both. Temporarily appearing, visibly observable in mirrors for an indeterminate duration, in space and time, and not of space and time. There is hearing, seeing, touching, smelling, tasting, and feeling. These energetic movements are apparently appearing as constant energetic movements of energy, but not separate energy, not separate energy forms. They're not exclusively separate. Nothing is exclusively separate. Everything and nothing is inseparably so and not so. Everything and nothing is inseparably so and not so ad infinitum. Which could also be stated using the phrase infinitudinal complexification. Absolutely everything and nothing that's inseparably so and not so is infinitudinally complexified. In actuality, it is infinitudinally complexifying energetic movements constantly, consistently, constantly, never ending. It never started. The energy movements that apparently appear to be energetic movements of energy, they never began, and they're never going to end. Simply because what apparently appears to be going on or happening is an apparent appearance of a temporally temporary realm. This realm or a setup is appearing as though time matters, or that time is a continuum. Time is saturating, or time apparently appears to be the cause of all these appearances that are thought to be appearances. Therefore, the word consciousness, is referring to that which cognizes, or that which apparently appears to be illustrating or demonstrating cognizing or cognition. Consciousness is cognition, it's thinking, it's believing. That which it believes is separate. That which believes it is a human corporeal form. That which believes it needs to communicate and it needs to proclaim. It needs to find. It seeks to find that which it believes needs to be sought. It believes it needs to seek that which will give itself or provide itself with a meaning and a purpose and a reason to live. Because it believes that. It thinks via consciousness. Now, it has been referred to as a parasitic movement, a mental thought system, a failed system. False evidence appearing real. That which fears its own end. But that which fears its own end does not recognize that it had no beginning. That which is referred to Advaita Vedanta, non-duality, the message behind these words spoken via what is referred to as an English language is cognized. It is conjured. Absolutely everything that appears is a conjuring. The absolute conjures absolutely everything and nothing that's inseparably so and not so, consistently in all spaces and in all times, throughout what is referred to as an infinite universe. The human corporeal manifestation operates via consciousness as a finite mind. But in that finiteness, the human corporeal manifestation believes in what it thinks it knows. And what it thinks it knows, it believes that it has learned what it knows. And what it has learned to know is that it can think and it could learn information and knowledge. It could learn information and then gain a sense of knowledge and information, a sense of beingness. It believes that. It believes that it is existing, or that it's present, or that it has a sense of knowing that it's present, knowing that it's real. It has a sense as though it is permanent, alive, but it is mistaking that sense and feeling of aliveness as though it is a permanent state. This apparent appearance of a human corporeal form is not a permanent state. It's a temporary state of appearances. Not just a single appearance, but innumerable appearances. In other words, to use the English language, always, as in space and time, always, as in what is thought to be yesterdays that it lived, and also thinking about tomorrow. And it thinks about time because it believes time is something that can be used to, by, for, from, about, with, and around that which believes it is separate from everybody and everything else. It believes in an everybody else and in everything else. It believes that it has a singular existence, an individual, independent existence, a human corporeal form manifestation, self-identifies and conjures up the idea that it is an independent self and that it's self-sufficient and that it can conduct self-maintenance upon itself. And so it takes the English language, it takes that and uses it. It uses it in a way that reinforces its own beliefs and understandings to, by, for, from, about, with, and around itself. It believes it independently exists of its own accord and volition. It believes it has free will and choice. It also believes that it had a beginning and will have an end. But it cannot comprehend infinity. It cannot comprehend that which is referred to no beginning and no end, Alpha and Omega. It does not comprehend that. But it believes it needs to know it. It believes it needs to know all about the Absolute. It feels that it must figure out how. How is it? How can it be that we are and we are not? How can that be both? How can everything and nothing be inseparably so and not so simultaneously at the same time? That doesn't make sense to that which believes it is separate from everybody and everything else. And so it conjures beliefs. It conjures ideas, concepts, subjects, and then it believes it is looking at objects. As it looks around what is referred to as separate objects, it thinks, it believes that there are separate objects around it. So it conjures up that idea. How does that happen? Well, it apparently appears to happen. There are no separate happenings. Absolutely everything and nothing that's inseparably so and not so is happening all the time. However, not just in one particular time frame or dimension or realm. All spaces and all times throughout the infinite universe. Nothing is singled out. Nothing is independent. Nothing is separate. There is no separation. There is no separation. Non-duality, Advaita Vedanta non-duality, it simply means not two. Now, it means that in the sense that there is that or this which believes and takes the idea upon itself to believe that it's independent, that it's separate, and that there is an I, there's a me. Personal experiences. I live just as you live. Therefore, taking that idea and believing that, this is how and why it believes in what it believes. The manner by which that seemingly occurred, or the manner by which it apparently appeared to begin, was an activity of movement. Still energy, still manifestation, always manifestation, whilst it's apparently appearing in space and time. Although it's not of space and time, simply because it's energy. Now, absolutely all energetic movements, innumerable ones. The countenance is immeasurable regarding energetic movements. They are not finite, that's why. That's how and why there are innumerable energetic movements. Simply because the countenance is immeasurable. The human corporeal manifestation that believes it is independent and is grouped together with other human corporeal manifestations that are believed to be separate as well, simply because in that belief of separation, it takes itself to be alone or isolated or independent, separate. All reinforcements of separation are utilized via consciousness, thinking about it, believing it, and then cognizing, taking cognition, taking knowledge, information, and taking it upon itself because it believes it can learn everything that it needs to know all about itself, to, by, for, from, about, with, and around itself. It believes it can do this. And it believes that's a doing. It believes it's an activity that is engaged. It's independently engaged with life. But it takes life personally. How and why does the self-conjured conjure self take life personally? Because it simply believes that. Did that happen in some way? Well, apparently it was learned. But how can that be learned? By a single, independent entity that believes it's separate from everybody and everything else. How can that seemingly happen? Well, yes, indeed, it's all seemingly. All this that is spoken of, that is communicated, although it's a message and although the satsang is to starve the questioner, that apparently appears to be the manner by which the setup within the setup is set up in a particular way. Now, although there are no particulars or no exclusivities regarding that which is appearing as the absolute, which is everything and nothing and separately so and not so, that which is appearing is referred to as a dream. Now, not just a permanent dream that always will be the manner by which the dream appears, 2 by 4 from, about, with, and around, that which believes it is separate from everybody and everything else, that can be referred to as the conjured self. The conjured self self-conjures 2 by 4 from, about, with, and around itself. Absolutely everything that it believes. It believes in absolutely every piece of information, every piece of information that is associated with knowledge or information that's gathered and it's believed to be that which can be used independently. That which can be isolated independently, as an example, would be to take information and create a knowledge base 2 by 4 from, about, with, and around itself. Therefore, it takes the language that is conjured, and yes, in agreement, languages were conjured. Languages were conjured to provide the precipitous for meaning, reason, and purpose to be conjured. None of that is required. None of that never, ever needed to be conjured. None of it. That which is uttered, all languages, all the languages that are spoken throughout what is referred to as a story of Earth. We refer to Earth as a story simply because it is not evidential to that which we're not. In other words, that which is believed to be evidential needs to be proven 2 by 4 from, about, with, and around that which believes it is separate. And so therefore, the independent, separate, conjured self that's self-identifying with itself, two by four, from, about, with, and around itself in time. It believes it had a beginning, and it believes it was born, and it believes in itself. It believes in its own self-conjurings of itself because of philosophies that it is conjured as well. It is conjured a philosophy that states, I think, therefore I am. And in that statement, it believes that. It believes that, well, I can think for myself. See, there's one of the pronouns. Although there are no nouns to be found, no nouns should be used via the English language. The same can go with pronouns as well. It extends. The self-conjured self makes every effort to extend itself because it's trying to self-preserve itself. It has this feeling of isolation simply because it's conjuring the idea that it is isolated and alone and separate. Therefore, all of this conjuring that's self-actuated and is independently reinforced by all information that it believes it's gathering two by four from, about, with, and around itself. Therefore, it seeks. What does it seek? It looks for that which it believes it needs to find. It is not only feeling isolated and alone because it conjured that to begin with. It conjured the idea that it is independent, separate, and alone, separate from everybody and everything else, that it believes that there's an everything else, and that it believes that there are other bodies, there are other bodies that they refer to everybody else, because they believe there are separate bodies. So if that's the case, they have to support everything else that goes along with that idea or along with that concept regarding separateness, separation, independence, individuality. Along with that, of course, comes the ego. The ego, and then all the feelings that go with ego. Vanity, mine is better than yours. All these type of ideas. I have my life I'm living. There's a separation. Absolutely anything that is conjured two by four from, about, with, and around a separate individual, independent entity, that it believes it is alive that way. It believes that it exists that particular way. Independently, permanently, physically solid, a beginning, life of its own, personal experiences, and then an end, death. That's what it believes. It believes in that wholeheartedly. It believes in that which apparently appears to be common knowledge. What is common knowledge and popular opinion? The societal structure. In society, it has been referred to as the sheeple mentality. Well, sheep gather and they flock together. And then there's these metaphors and analogies that are used with religion, especially in Christianity. The Lord is my shepherd. Really? Is the Lord just your shepherd, or is it everybody else's shepherd? See? Stories. Yes, these are all stories, all religions, all spiritual teachings. In any language, you take your pick, every language that can be learned. That's the rub. That's the origination point. That is how it apparently appeared to seemingly begin, based on that which can be learned, based on information, based on knowledge. And so that knowledge was thought to be used for generating, yeah, you guessed it, for generating meaning, reason, and purpose that never needed to have or be or exist. Meaning, reason, and purpose does not need to be used or exist. It doesn't have to exist, but it was conjured. The self-conjured self conjured the whole story. And it came up with innumerable stories, and now there are innumerable stories to entertain. It's always seemingly been this way. It seemingly has been this way as a setup. The subconscious self cannot imagine a world 2x4 from, about, with, and around itself other than the way it believes it is. And in agreement, though. And therefore, it's locked in. It locks in the next new additional entity or additional person that's separate. It's going to add and say, well, there are, on average, if we keep track of those conjured selves, instead of calling them that, in society, the words are used in the English language such as person, people, us, we, them, they, I, me. All those pronouns are reinforced. Did that have a beginning? Well, yes. The story of a human corporeal appearance, okay, as though it's separate. That story began with the idea of a birth, of being born. That's the story. Okay, once upon a time, a baby was born. See? And then it goes on from there. Because that's believed. That's common knowledge. That is what's taken to be common knowledge, so nobody questions it. But the moment somebody questions that, what happens? Then it begins to think, well, wait a minute. I'm not going along with what's common knowledge, and if I don't, I've learned. I've learned what I know. And if I've learned what I know, that means I need to reinforce that because I'm the one that learned. So you see, the reinforcement has been so deeply entrenched in what is referred to as an independent individual person. It has become so embedded in the way of thinking that it cannot imagine. It cannot cognize. It cannot know how it really isn't that it's taking itself to be, as though it is a separate entity or a separate individual. It's not. Never was. It never was. That which it takes itself to be, a separate individual person. Never was. It just learned it. And in that learning, it began to reinforce and add more and more and more information, more knowledge, 2x4 from, about, with, and around itself. It just kept on doing that because, I don't know. Yes, it would say that, well, I don't know. I don't know why I do this, that, and the other. I just know I do it. Well, that's because it's me. That's why I do whatever I do. See? It is so locked into it. It is so locked into this self-identification with itself that it doesn't know any way out, and then it feels what? And it begins to entertain the idea that it is alone. It is so alone. So, man, it doesn't want to feel that way. No. Because it believes so strongly that it's separate that it begins to fear. It begins to fear that which it believes is alone. If it believes it is alone by itself, because it always thinks that way, and it's learned that. Yes, of course it's learned it. It's learned it ever since it began to do this, and then the other subconscious selves that believe in common knowledge and that which is popular opinion in a societal structure because it believes it's part of it. But we can get into that and how all that seemingly happened and transpired step by step by step. But yes, there's no seemingly other way. There are other ways to explain this, of course, the message of non-duality and Advaita Vedanta, and that's what the main theme. Is it a theme? Well, we can call it a theme because it is subjectified and objectified to appeal to that which we're not. So in order for this message to, although it goes over the heads of that which we're not, that's a figure of speech. What goes over a head? What is that supposed to mean? Well, you've heard that expression. It has been heard. When I say you've heard, this is still an appeal to that which you believe you are. And that which you believe you are is an independent person, separate from everybody and everything else. You believe in what you've conjured. Yeah. You conjured a you. You conjured a me. You conjured I. You conjured us. You conjured we. You conjured this. You conjured that. All dualities conjured. This, that, and the other. Separate. Separate things, separate ideas, conditions, conditional. Conditional life. All conjured. Conditional life 2 by 4 from, about, with, and around a self-conjured, conjured self that believes in its own authenticity. It believes it's unique in its terminal uniqueness. Yes, unique, special, independent. Yeah. Independent, my life. What'd you say? Yeah, I know. You're living your life. Okay, that's fine. You know what? Live your life however you want to live it. You know why? Because you have free will and choice. No, you don't. You just think you do. See? Just thinking. It's all in the thinking. It's all in the cognizing. It's all in the cognition. Consciousness. It's not a hard problem. No. Don Hoffman. Sorry. The birth name and birthright of Don Hoffman. Allegedly, he's a mathematical genius. Wow. He's likened to an Einstein. Impressive. Yes. Yeah, a legend in their own minds. Oh, yeah. The subconjured self conjures that idea to such a degree that, hey, check me out, I have degrees at the end of my surname. See? My surname. Mine. I did it. All on my own. I went to those prestigious colleges. I took the time and I funded my education, or it was funded for me. Could have been funded for me. Oh no, I got a scholarship, so I'm that good at what I know. Because I'm that intelligent. Oh man, I'm intellectually adroit all the way. I am intellectually adroit. See, I am this, I am that. He is that. He is this, he is that. She is this, she is that. We are this, we are that. They are this, that. See? Dualities. All of those dualities, they never mattered, but they certainly matter. 2 by 4 from, about, with, and around that which believes. It is a separate entity. It is a separate individual person that's living a life of their own, and they know it. That's why it's true. It's true because it's known. And if anything is known to be true, it could also be known to be false. But it is neither. Nothing has to be or required to be either true or false. Neither. No. Duality again. No conditions. Just as in love. Love is witnessed as conditional even when it is referred to as unconditional love. No. No. Neither. But you hear that though. Oh, wait a minute. We're unconditionally loving. We're not conditionally loving. You know what? It's both. It's conditional and non-conditional. You can't leave one out. one or the other, then that's separation. See? And the seeing of that. Seeing in that. Not seeing from that which we're not. Because that which we're not is just simply facilitating sight. It's like looking through a camera. And that camera is the body mind that's temporally temporary. So eyes that were thought to be, if that which believes it is pointing to its own face and it says, these are my eyes, and I get to see whatever I want to see. And I'm going to see whatever I want to see, I'm going to see it. Because I have my own free will and choice to see what I want to see. No, it's the other way around. Mm-mm. It can seem that way. Oh yeah, and it does. 2x4 from about that. 2x4 from about with and around that which believes it is seen of its own accord and volition. No. What is lending sight to that which believes it is seen? It's lending the vision. What's behind the sight of that which we're not? What's behind that? Seeing. And that's what we are. We're that energetic movement of seeing. No parameters, no boundaries, no limitations. Just seeing. Seeing the seeing. And the term, the word, the English word, although this is a feeble attempt using a language to make every effort to appeal to that which we're not, and use the English language in such a way that it removes, it negates, indeed it negates, it removes everything that the self-conjured conjures self-conjured. 2x4 from, about, with, and around itself. It not only negates, but it makes every effort to extract this idea of separation. Extract that entity that believes it is separate from an everybody and from an everything else. There is no everything else that's independent and separate. And there is no everybody else either. And there's neither a you or a me. And you're not neither there or here or there. There are no fixed positions. No dual fixed positions. Although the English language has been referred to as a dual language, it's dual in a sense that it can be used 2x4 from, about, with, and around the self-conjured conjure self that takes any language or all languages, regardless of what language has been conjured, uses that 2x4 from, about, with, and around itself to support itself and to support its beliefs. So it takes language, communication, and then it supports everything that is associated with individuality and separateness. That's what languages do. And that's the purpose of the languages. It's always been the purpose of the languages, but no, the self-conjured self still stubborn, says, no, that's not it. It's not why. It's not why we have language. We have language because we need to communicate with separate others that are around us, see? See, it reinforces the independence, see? It's reinforcing separation that way. Languages separate. They separate the idea that there's a separate you over there, so I need to speak about, using the language to speak and communicate to you. Nothing has to communicate to anything. No. It's just being, and just simply by being and showing up, you're already mingling. And in that mingling, you're being. And that doesn't have to be discussed. It doesn't even have to be written down, talked about, any type of communication, any type of communique in any language. Doesn't have to be written, doesn't have to be spoken about. No, neither. No, just simply be. And in that being, Look at how nature. Is nature communicating with itself? Oh, we think it does. We think it does. Because what do? When I say we, see, it's still appealing to the groups in the society and what's believed to be a societal structure of conjured selves. It anthropomorphizes, doesn't it? It's anthropomorphic by nature. And what that means, anthropomorphic, is that it self-identifies the human race as though it needs to interact and exchange in some way and communicate with nature. So what does it do? It conjures beliefs, it conjures spiritual teachings, it conjures religions. So that it can believe and think that it's doing something. That it is actually engaging and doing and affecting. It wants to have an effect. It believes in causes and effects. It believes in that wholeheartedly. Because it believes it needs to do something. Two by four from, about, with, and around itself. It believes wholeheartedly in that because it is making every effort to do what? Well, to continue doing what it believes it needs to do. Well, what does it believe it needs to do? The self-conjured self believes it needs to develop. It needs to evolve. It needs to move forward. It needs to be more than it needs to be more than what it thinks about itself. In other words, it is believed to be evolving. It believes in that evolution. It believes in movement of forward and developing and refinement. It believes in refinement because it doesn't think that it is done yet. It doesn't think that the human race is complete yet. It believes that it has to be refined and it has to evolve into something greater than what it already is. No. It's already as great as it's ever going to get. It doesn't become an independent human, the human race as what's referred to as a human race on a planet that's harboring innumerable life forms. What makes the human race more special than all the other life forms out there? What is referred to as an out there? There's no separation. No. No living thing is any greater or worse than anything else. That's duality. That's duality. That's cherry picking and choosing, describing descriptions, isolating life forms, calling them a certain name. And all that does is it supports separation. That's all that's doing. Supporting separation. It doesn't realize it. It doesn't realize what it's doing. Because if it doesn't realize what it's doing, then it needs to realize what it's doing. Does it? Neither. It neither has to realize what it's doing or not realize what it's doing because the realization is not even required in the first place. To realize what? To realize that we are alive. Now wait a minute. Do I need to know that I'm alive? No. Because you're already being alive. See? How many other ways does the new Advaitin need to say this so that not only does it continue to go overhead and reach that which we truly are, which is everywhere. Yeah, you can't miss everywhere. So this message is being thrown over the heads of that which we're not. That's why it doesn't make sense. If this message of Advaita Vedanta, non-duality, does not make sense to what you believe is a separate you, then look somewhere else then. Go to some other non-duality channel. Perhaps. And it is just there's this idea that if this is repeated enough times and in many different ways, and there are innumerable ways to present the message of non-duality, Advaita Vedanta, there are. Because the Absolute is always all ways, even those ways that are unknown, the unknowable ways. There are knowable ways and there are unknowable ways. Ways of what? Ways 2 by 4 from, about, with, and around what? The absolute. Because the absolute is absolutely everything and nothing, and separately so and not so, which includes absolutely everything and nothing. That is and is not. Both simultaneously. Therefore, what is considered to be what we are is an energetic movement. Now, and that energetic movement is constantly, always will be, timelessly and boundlessly mingling, coalescing, blending, mixing. Not a final or a separate mixture or blend or coalescence. Not a separate one. No, it's a blending. It's a mix. It's a mixing. It's not a separate mix. No, it's not a separate blend. Energetic movement's energy. It's constantly oscillating, blending. It's intertwined. It's immersion. It's immersed. It's coalesced, mixed, blended with the absolute in all spaces and in all times throughout the infinite universe. Yeah, take your pick. Stories of Earths throughout the infinite universe could and may actually be going on, even now, that we refer to as now in space and time. We make references and say, and we use these languages to address that which we're not, to appeal to that which we're not. Once the appeal, then there's this collapse. Now, that collapse is not a finality as well. Why? Because there is no beginning and there is no end to absolutely everything and nothing. Simultaneously, both real and unreal, observable and observable, knowable and unknowable. 2 by 4 from, about, with, and around nobody. So many ways to say that. Innumerable ways to say that. And they are going to be said. They're going to be stated. Just as stubborn as a self-conjured self is, the message of non-duality, Advaita Vedanta, is going to be stubbornly stated. Just as stubborn as a self-conjured self believes of its own independence and isolation and separateness and terminal uniqueness and separate from everybody and everything else, so it conjures the idea, wait a minute, I have a certificate of authenticity, I know who I am. You're not a who. You never were a who. If anything, you're a what? Well, what are you then? Energy? No, but does that have any substance? Does it have any... No. It temporary can appear that way, though, and it is doing that. What is it doing? Well, it's appearing. How does it appear? That's an energetic movement. Do I need to know about that? Well, we could discuss it for now. See, but it's not always discussed, is it? Well, in a sense, it is, and it is not. See, so it sounds paradoxical. It sounds as though, well, wait a minute. That sounds like fence riding here. If things don't go your way, then you conjure up some other idea. Well, see, that's the way it works. 2 by 4 from, about, with, and around the self-conjured self that thinks in terms of, well, I need to know about it. I need to know about it. Not you. I need to know about it. And once I do know about it, you know what? I might share that with you. If you're willing to listen. So if we're going to communicate, talk about that which we believe we are, that is separate and unique and independent from everybody and everything else, no. No. That was just learned. That was taken to be true, but it was taken to be permanently true. It's not permanent. It's impermanent. In space and time. But we are not of space and time. What is we? We as a human corporeal appearance, that's the we that we're referring to here. As a human race. What's referred to as a human race, a society. There is no separation to be found anywhere. For the moment that separation is found somewhere, then in that separation, there's the idea of conjuring separation and reinforcing it. It's very easy to do that. How? How is that easy to do? Because it's simply believed. It's that easy. It's that easy. And it's just as easy, though, to drop the idea. Just drop it. And then collapse. No, but you know what? People claim. See? Still the same. There's a claim. The proclamation. To go and say, well, I'm attending Jim Newman's satsangs. I've attended Tony Parsons' satsang. So that means that the me collapsed. Yeah, I was also over in Germany, and I checked out one of the birthday and birthright of Andreas Mueller, and he said apparently it appears to be happening, and he said the collapse happens, but no, it doesn't happen for anybody. It's not 2x4 from, about, with, and around anybody. But you see, you just can't leave it there. You can't just say, well, it apparently appears to be so. No. Apparently appears to be so and not so. Now, see, because then, guess what's going to happen? And it's happening now. Then, these brief messages that were not thorough enough, the Neo-Advaitin was not thorough enough in the satsangs. He held the satsangs, but the responsibility of holding that satsang is to not only starve the questioner, but to cover every single aspect of what is spoken, especially with the English language. Because the self-conjured conjure self is extremely clever to take what it believes it knows and take those beliefs and continue them, and continue that independence. Well, you know what I know? I know now that I believe that I'm a Neo-Advaitin, now I can come up with a philosophy about it. No. The birth name and birthright, Lisa Cares is doing that. Does it matter? No. None of it does. So why conjure? See? You know how and why that's happening? Because the collapse is continuing to collapse. This collapse, say, well, the me collapsed. No, it doesn't stop there. It keeps going. The collapsing. It's an energetic movement of collapsing, just as seeing. Just as seeing, tasting, smelling, touching, feeling, hearing. Not hearers, not new Advaita hearers, not new Advaita philosophers, no. Not the Neo Advaita philosophy of non-duality, no. It's not it. Oh, I don't want to sneeze. Hold on, I'm going to pause this. Nobody can make out Advaita Vedanta non-duality to be a philosophy. Now, why mix it all up together like that and create this freaking non-dual soup? Create something else because it's believed to be some particular way. Okay, let's come up with a philosophy for non-duality now. Let's accommodate. See? Still conjuring. Still collapsing. A Neo-Advaita doesn't collapse and said, well, that's it. It collapsed. Now it can move on being a non-self. No. It's neither. It's not that. It's not that way. Because that's duality all over again. To create and say and state and proclaim that a Neo-Advaitin can take non-duality and a message of non-duality and Advaita Vedanta and turn it into a teaching. Turn it into a teaching, turn it into a philosophy. Really? No. No. That's not the message of Advaita Vedanta non-duality. That philosophy, that's separate. Philosophy is separate. Then there's the message of Advaita Vedanta non-duality. Then there's philosophy over there. No, you don't put them together like that. But you know what? They're going to do it anyway. There are going to be groups of Neo-Advaitins going to branch off. The same way it has been going on for thousands of years. Oh yeah. And how has that been going on for thousands of years? Look at the origin. Look at the origins over in India. A place on this planet is referred to as India. Yes, it's an actual place. Apparently, it appears you can go to. But who can go to it? Well, although there are no fixed positions in space and time, it just apparently appears to be the case. And that's not an excuse. It just apparently appears. Because you can't say that a certain place is always going to be where it is, where a place is. A fixed position in space and time, no, it won't always be like that. It's impermanent. It's impermanently so. Yeah. It's also temporarily, permanently so. And it's also not so. It's both. Because absolutely everything and nothing is inseparably so, not so, is always always. Always always.
This is a beautiful, if you see the window, it's perfect because really the message is going to that window. It's not going to you. Because to talk about Big M mind to you goes nowhere. Yeah, but if I talk to Big M mind about you, it can go somewhere. But if I keep talking to you about mind, it doesn't go freaking anywhere. You think
Now let's just get this straight right there, that bit. Big in mind. Big in mind is just another phrase in the English language that's used as a identifier or a pointer regarding the absolute. Big in mind is likened to the absolute. Simple as.
you know mind, and knowing mind is like the booby prize because being mind is the only opportunity we really have.
Let's expand on that. Did you catch that one? Did you really? Did you really catch that one? Break that down. What was just stated right there. Knowing. Two apparently appearing completely different modes or modalities. Knowing. There's knowing, and then there's what's thought to be doing, and then there's just simply being. Now, it's always just being. There is no knowing. There is no doing. Neither of those are necessary. They're just to simply be. They're just simply beingnessing. Not just beingness, where it's beingness in some fixed position, then it goes over there to the next position, and then it's being there, the beingness. No, beingness seen. Everything is ing. Yes, everything's ing. Just as this new Advaitin, the birth name and birthright of Paul Hederman, just as states verbing. Yes, yes, absolutely everything is verbing. All the time, in all spaces and in all times throughout the infinite universe. It doesn't have to be verbing right there for a while and then it's done. And then it's going to go verbing over there, some other fixed position. No. It may apparently appear to be the setup. Yes, of course, we have maps. We follow maps. We have clocks, watches, timepieces. Because there's the illusion of time. Although it's an illusion, we can still keep track of it. Seemingly so, yes. Daylight savings time ended, as an example. Although everything apparently appears to be saturated in time, that gives the illusion as though there is progression, or there is a gradual development, or there's movement. Oh, there's definitely movement, but it's not an isolated movement from one place to another, from one little point to the next. No, there is no separation. There are no separate points. It's all together. It's always. It's all immersion. It's immersioned. It's immersion throughout the infinite universe in all spaces and in all times, coalescing, mixing, blending with the absolute. With the absolute. In all spaces and in all times throughout the infinite universe. And all the ideas of conjuring Earth-like planets and all the stories of Earths throughout the infinite universe, and it's going to keep on going, keep on constantly, over and over and over and over again. It will never end because it never even started. Now, does that make sense? Of course not. It's not meant to make sense. No meaning, reason, purpose. It's not meant to make sense to anybody because it makes sense to nobody. There's nobody around for that to make sense. There's nobody anywhere in some fixed position for that to make sense. 2 by 4 from, about, with, and around. Nobody. Absolutely.
Yeah, being, big M mind. Being awareness. It's not knowing awareness, it's not studying awareness, it's being. We only have one opportunity about what we are, and that is to be what we are.
One opportunity? No. Innumerable opportunities. Not just one opportunity. Okay, you had your chance, but you blew it. That was your only opportunity. You're not going to have any more. No, innumerable opportunities. That's the beauty of beingnessing. Yes, that's the beauty of beingnessing. Not just being a separate person for today, and tomorrow I might be thinking about it now. I'll give it a rest. No, I won't do that. See, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do being. It's effortless. It's effortless. Is it effortless for a reason, meaning, and purpose? No. So don't try to conjure one. But that's the habitual offensiveness. 2 by 4 from, about, with, and around. The self-conscious conscious self that believes it needs to be doing something. Well, you know what? I'm living my own. This is how. This is exactly, precisely how, and you can tell the difference. You can tell the difference between that which is in the act of collapsing. Always in the act of collapsing. There's no final collapse. No neo-Advaitin that can profess to be a neo-Advaitin. Yeah, it's not separately being a neo-Advaitin. It's just calling itself that now, because of the habitual offensiveness of self-identification. It's going to give itself another entitlement. And it's always going to do that. And then it's always going to take the message of non-duality, Advaita Vedanta, and turn it into another classification. It's going to turn it into another institution or another ashram. It's going to build another ashram. It's going to say, well, no, this ashram's different. It's a new Advaitist ashram now. Oh, but where's the ashram? The ashram is mobile. It's going on the internet. It could travel anywhere and everywhere, and it could reach innumerable PCs or innumerable hardware, mobile phones, iPads, notebooks, notepads, desktops, laptops, all these various devices that are hooked up to the internet, and it's continuing to go on. It's not going to stop. It's going to be a representation of the absolute. Whoa, wait a minute. What do you mean? A representation of the absolute? Precisely. Why? How is that? There is no how and why. It is simply overlapping. But it's not an overlay that has parameters or edges or boundaries or a partition. It can appear to be a partition, just as in a computer. IT techs know about that very well. They know that every computer has a partition in it. But you see, that's just a knowing. That's just being aware of that. But then again, what is being aware to being aware? Is there anything separate that's aware to being aware of its own awareness? No. It could be thought to be that way, and it is. The self-conscious conscious self thinks that way. It thinks of independent awareness. There are no independent entities being aware anywhere to be found, because there are no fixed positions in space and time. It only apparently appears to be that way. It only apparently appears to be that setup in space and time. It's temporally temporary. It's not permanent. Never was. It's thought to be, though. The subconscious conscious self thinks it is, though. It thinks it is. It is alive of its own accord and volition. It has free will and choice to make choices. It believes it makes choices of its own. It thinks this way. Here's how it thinks it has free will. I'm getting up and standing from this chair. No. Well, I decided not to get up after all. Not that kind. Not that type of decision making. Not that type of free will and choice. It's no different than saying that, well, the heart's beating, but it's automatically beating. It's a involuntary. There's voluntary and involuntary muscles. Yeah? And there are voluntary and involuntary processes that are going on in the biology of a body mind. Oh, yeah. Most educated body minds, yeah, call them what they are. They're just body minds. They're appearing to be educated. So, is one body mind that's educated better or worse than another? No. That's separation, isn't it? See? Society operates on that type of separation and that individuality and uniqueness. You are a very special person. And you know what makes you very special? It's because you have a birth name and birthright unlike anybody else on this earth does. Yeah, right. You gonna still believe that one? Okay, keep going then. Because no collapsing. You're gonna continue to be chasing your own tail, so to speak. Just like a dog chases a tail. It gets nervous, it doesn't know what else to do, so it does that action. It doesn't know any better. It doesn't have to know any better. Because it's naturally being. Yes. The animals, the canines, they're just naturally being whatever they're being. But we have to call it something. We have to figure out, well, what are they being over there? Well, we need to know, so we come up with a Discovery Channel and the History Channel so we can figure out how they're being over there. We don't have to know about the how and why. Just be. Just let it be. Give it a rest. Let it be. Leave it alone. Leave it alone. See? Does that sound familiar? Oh, leave him be. Leave him alone. Mind your own business. Just leave him alone. See? Reinforcing. Still reinforcing and not even recognizing it. It's so deeply entrenched in the language in the society. In the English language. Separation. It's been reinforced in so many ways. And just as innumerable ways to collapse as it is to maintain self-awareness. To maintain this self-awareness, this idea of independence. Of a self-conjured conscious self 2x4 from, about, with, and around itself. Yes, it's tightly wound with terminal uniqueness. And so, it is seemingly going to take radical Neo-Advaitin messages and radical satsangs. It's just a manifestation of Advaita Vedanta, the non-duality, Advaita Vedanta, not the not-two-ness, but it's a reinforcement. It's a different version. It's a modern version, so to speak. It's not permanently going to be a modern version. It's going to manifest some other way. And some other innumerable other ways. And then it's going to go branch off into non-duality philosophy, and it's going to turn out just like the New Age movement did back in the 1990s. The New Age movement. Well, what movement is this we're referring to? The Neo-Advaitin movement. Do we have to call it that? No. But it's going to be labeled anyway. Why? The habitual offensiveness of that which we're not, which is the self. Since self cannot get out of self, it believes it still has to do something. So what does it do? It climbs aboard the non-duality train, the Neo-Advaitin train. All aboard to the Neo-Advaitin train. We're about to continue to take you to places that you have never ever been. You know why? Because you're already being everywhere. Well, wait a minute. What does that mean? See? So it's going to go on and on and on that way. The Neo-Advaitin is going to be able to appeal to every single self-conjured self that believes it is a conjured self, that believes that it is separate from everybody and everything else. This message is to appeal to that which we're not. Yeah, this is an appeal and a message to, by, for, from, about, with, and around that which believes it's terminally unique, that which believes it is a separate entity, to, by, for, from, about, with, and around itself. The self-conjured self. This particular Neo-Advaitin, so-called Neo-Advaitin, has come up. Yes, conjured, indeed. The conjuring still goes on, and the collapsing still goes on. There is no final collapse, and there's no final conjuring. Nothing is final. Nothing ends. There is no such thing as death. Nothing ends, because nothing ever began. See? Do you get that? No. That's advanced Neo-Advaita, so to speak. That's advanced Neo-Advaita speech with the English language, using the English language. You can clearly see how it gradually developed. This message of Neo-Advaita just on this particular channel. And you can go to all the other channels. Take your pick. Go ahead. You're free to do so, right? Apparently we have free will and choice. Well, you're free to do that too, right? You can change this channel and go somewhere else. Good. Don't just stay on this channel and exclusively listen to this Neo-Advaitin. Yeah. Don't just listen to this Neo-Advaitin and the message that's being delivered this way. Check it out. Go around and look around. Hey, you're already good at checking things out, aren't you? Sure we are. What, the self-conjured self is very good at that. What is it good at? Seeking. Oh yeah. And a lot of these Neo-Advaitins were expert seekers. Oh yeah, man. There were some of the most staunch, strongest, eagerest seekers of them all. You know, the Neo-Advaitin that says, oh, I guess I just decided, no, I stumbled across it. No, it's going to come up with an excuse to say what it believes it is. No. See, another belief again. So don't be going to self-profess that you are Neo-Advaitin. It's just the same as a guru saying something along these lines. Devotee, you didn't kiss my feet enough. Well, since you did not, this is where we part way, my friend. Wow. Talk about a God complex, huh? Oh, man, deifying. So, the Neo-Advaitin that expresses that way? Oh, no. That's mimicking. That's mimicking the guru devotee setup. As though to say, no, we're parting way because you don't understand. Since you don't understand the teacher, then you're going to have to go and listen to some other teacher. Because we have to part way, my friend. Check it out, okay? So not only is the collapse going to continue, it doesn't end. The collapse that's referred to with a birth name and birthright of Tony Parsons. We used to start referring to the collapse. Yeah, there was a walk in the park, and I was walking in the park, the birth name and birthright, Tony Parsons walking in the park. Then all of a sudden it just turned into a walk in the park because the me died. No, it just didn't die there. It's still lingering, but it's collapsing. Just as a body decays. You know, rigor mortis, if you don't treat it, it's going to stink to high freaking heaven, so to speak. Yeah? Well, it's the same idea. There is no final collapse. For the moment that there's a final collapse, there is still terminal uniqueness going on right there. There's still a Neo-Advaitin is going to say, yeah, I did it. I'm the one. I decided that collapse happened. No, you didn't. No decision. There's no decision making in beingness. Nobody has to decide to be. Of course not. Silly, isn't it? Think about that. Does it require a lot of thinking? No. It's a spontaneous recognition. So the Neo-Advaitin is a spontaneous recognizer. That's how it can immediately, spontaneously tell the fruits of that particular tree, so to speak, using that analogy. You will know them by their fruits. Spontaneously, though. I mean, split freaking second. I mean, right there and then. A Neo-Advaitin can meet anybody that's terminally unique, anywhere in society, anywhere on this planet, and they'll be able to tell the difference between that which is taking itself to be terminally unique and independent and separate, or a self-contra self, and that which is collapsing. It's either or. No. It's a two-way street now. But can it return? Yes, just as easily. It can return to terminal uniqueness again. It can return back to it and then support that and then start faking it. No, you can't. You can't fake what you already are. Nobody can fake that. No. Try it. It doesn't work. If you think you can do it, well, yeah. Well, do we see any examples? Sure we do. The birthday and birthright, Lisa Cairns, as an example. Non-duality philosophy. No. See, and that Neo-Advaitins is going to say, yeah, I came up with non-duality philosophy. And there's other Neo-Advaitins to support that idea of non-duality philosophy. So we're going to join our little groups. We're going to have our ashrams. We're going to have our talks. And we're going to charge a whole lot of money, and we're going to get wealthy from it. And we're going to be well off. We're going to kick back and we're going to laugh all the way to the bank, so to speak. You can't bank on this. There's nothing to offer. You can't cash in on it. Nobody can cash in on that. Cashing in on the message of Advaita Vedanta non-duality? No. There is no monetary value. There never was. There's nothing to sell. Yes. The birth name and birthright, Tony Parsons, he's mentioned that before. That's true. There is nothing to sell. There's nothing to buy. Nothing to gain, nothing to lose. That's right. None of it. None of it matters. Never did. And love? Unconditional love? No. There's also conditional love. In fact, it apparently appears to be more conditional love than there is unconditional love. It apparently appears to be more, but there is not more or less than neither. There's not more unconditional love or less unconditional love. There's not more unconditional love. There's not less unconditional love. Conditional and unconditional. Both. It doesn't matter. Either or. Neither matters. It's just speech. It's just entertaining words, just entertaining ideas, concepts. It doesn't even need to be discussed. It doesn't need to be talked about. None of it does. But you know why it's being talked about? Well, there's not a meaning, reason, purpose, but yet the speech regarding Advaita Vedanta, non-duality, and Neo-Advaita is to appeal to what? That which we're not. And there is plenty of them out there. Plenty of body minds. Majority of the body minds that believe in terminal uniqueness and individuality and that they're living their own lives. Majority of them are still going out there. They're into various activities that they believe that matter. 2 by 4 from, about, with, and around themselves. That's all right. Doesn't matter. Either way. And yet, the Neo-Advaitin has been conjured. There it is. No turning back. Continuous collapsing. And the collapsing will apparently appear to end at a particular point, perhaps. Yes. Since we apparently appear to be in space and time, although we're not of space and time, that collapsing, energetic movement of collapsing, yes, it'll reach a point of where it's no longer collapsing, and that is going to be that point by which, when it apparently appears to disappear. And when does that apparently appear to occur or happen? It apparently appears to disappear in space and time when it is no longer animating a body mind. When that energy form that's apparently appearing as a human corporeal body mind action figure, yeah, a unit of local quasi conscious energy. When we say a unit of local in a sense is temporal. Is the impermanence of temporal temporariness. Yeah. Well, just perhaps go over the last two recent presentations on this channel, and then notice the gradual additional manner by which the message of non-duality Advaita Vedanta is expressed. This particular Neo-Advaitin is expressing in a particular manner. Yeah, it is expressing in a particular manner, but not exclusively so. It apparently appears to be particular, but it's not exclusive. No, it's not any more special or less special than the other Neo-Advaitin. Some other Neo-Advaitin is expressing. It's still the message nonetheless. Yet, there are innumerable ways to share the message. And it's not, one of them is not by philosophy, but it's going to be conjured anyway, isn't it? Because the conjuring still goes on. Why? Because the collapsing is still happening. It didn't finally collapse and then die altogether. No. It's taking some time to die off, to die out. And just as energy diminishes, it diminishes and eventually disappears. But then that same energy will reconstitute and reappear somewhere else. That's apparently appearing to be somewhere else. But there are no somewhere else's. It's just an apparent appearance. See? It's just a setup, but it's temporally temporary. That's how and why it's temporally temporary. Because it's just a temporary setup. Oh, there's so many ways to say that. How many gists does it take? Do you get the gist? No. You may not get it yet? Okay. Still collapsing? Alright, fine.
We are being what we are right now, and the way we're appearing is we're believing a lot of shit that's not. Yeah. So we're taking false evidence to appear real. So I did the talks in LA, and people came up to the guy who was working the door, and they kept saying, you know, everything this guy says goes over my head. So the guy came up to me after the talk and brought that up, and I said, yes, that's where I'm aiming. You know, I'm throwing it over your head. I'm not throwing it at you. Because it goes fucking nowhere. Mm-hmm. Yeah? You start thinking you know something, and that's the biggest impediment to being what you are, is trying to know what you are.
Yeah. And the novice, so to speak, Neo-Advaitin, see, it goes off and believes and conjures the idea that non-duality is a philosophy. See, that is an example. It still doesn't realize, it doesn't recognize. It's just going through the motions, so to speak. It's going through the motions. It says, oh yeah, the me collapsed, so now I recognize that non-duality, the message of Advaita Vedanta, is a philosophy. So there, I'm going to conjure a meaning, reason, purpose, although I'm not going to call it that. I'm going to call it a philosophy instead of, see, no. Mm-mm. No meanings, no reasons, no purposes. For the absolute to apparently appear to arise as it does, as it will, of its own accord and volition. Not the free will and choice, not the artificial free will and choice, not the artificial conjured idea of accord and volition and free will and choice. No. Nobody has free will and choice or correlation. It apparently appears to be that way because the conjured self believes that. Because it believes it. And it's in those beliefs that self perpetuate the idea of terminal uniqueness, of separation. 2 by 4 from, about, with, and around. Yes, 2 by 4 from, about, with, and around. The self-conjured self that conjures the idea that it can turn this message of non-duality into a philosophy. Fine. It doesn't matter. Nothing has to be done about that. Of course not. Yeah. Is there a reaction that needs to be expressed? No. The body-mind might freak out every now and then, but that's all it's doing. It's freaking out. It's expressing some other way. It reacts. It keeps on reacting. However, the difference is that the traveling is much, much lighter because it's not carrying all these ideas of terminal uniqueness anymore. Because the collapse is continuing. The collapse is accelerating. The collapse is quickening. I mean, it started at the so to speak, like a snowball, the top of a hill, and then as it pitches and goes down the side of a hill, it begins to gather more snow, so to speak. Well, so the same with the collapse. Once that collapse apparently appeared to begin at some point, it will not end at any other point. Just as there was no point that it began, the collapse, it will not have a point to where it ends. It's just simply an energetic movement. Just similarly as the energetic movement of seeing, or hearing, or tasting, or feeling, or touching, or smelling. Any of those 5 gates. Any of those 5 sensory input-output modalities. 2 by 4 from, about, with, and around. The subconscious self that believes it is the smeller, it's the taster, it's the hearer, it's the seer. That it is a separate seer, taster, smeller, feeler, toucher, taster. It's not separate. There is nothing separate. There is no separation. Nothing is exclusively so. Nothing is permanently so. It's both. It's everything and nothing. Simultaneously, so and not so.
So it's sort of like, you ever see that Buddha with the 1,000 arms? Yeah, and so the mental state has about 1,000 mitts on those 1,000 arms, and everything that's thrown in its direction, or any direction, it catches it and claims it and neuters it, yeah? So the mental state, so it's like the Death Star in Star Wars. It's shooting down all the fighter planes, yeah? Or like, it's like spiritual sperm, yeah? So the message, the sharing, the repeating it is like spiritual sperm. You're trying to go, only one may make it, yeah? But only one has to hit the egg of mind for the egg of mind to conceive a possibility. And the possibility is simply, I'm not that. As soon as it entertains the possibility that it's not what it's not, it can entertain, I can be free from it. Yeah.
And once it begins to entertain, as though there's a beginning for it to entertain, that which it is not is a collapse. But it's not a final collapse. That collapse just doesn't stop at some point. It continues on. And it continues on and on and on. And it continues, apparently appearing to continue, collapsing whilst it is still appearing. Temporarily so. But it is also not so. The not so-ness stems from what? That which is out of nowhere. From nothing. In space and time, and not of space and time. Out of nowhere, from nothing. And then temporarily appearing in space and time, for an indeterminate duration or in space and time as number of years. Maybe 80 years, 85 if you're lucky, 80, 85. The average. The average. Now, are there any conditions for that which is appearing for an indeterminate duration in space and time? Are there conditions? Well, there appear to be certain types of habits of a body mind. A body mind can extend perhaps a few additional years of appearing. But it doesn't really matter, the appearance of a body mind. It is the manner by which it's expressing that can appear to matter. But it's both. It's mattering and not mattering. Literally, the biology, the action figure, appears biologically so. Okay, and then it apparently appears to no longer animate, and it refers to passing away or death. See, saying that phrase, those two words together, passing away, it sounds more positive and more soothing and not quite as abrupt and harsh as the word death. You know, right? Oh, he passed away. No, he didn't die. He passed away. He passed away in his sleep. Well, most body minds hope to pass away peacefully. What do they pass away to? Do they pass away anywhere? Where do they go? Well, they apparently appear to go nowhere. They go back where? To nothing. They go back to nowhere, back to nothing. From a place that's not a place that it came from. So that which apparently appears to be humanly corporeal, just visibly observable in mirrors for an indeterminate duration in space and time. Although it's not of space and time, it's appearing in space and time, an energetic movement of energy, but it happens to appear as though it's humanly corporeal. Just using the English language that way. Conveying these ideas and concepts, that's all they are. It doesn't have to be mentioned, it doesn't have to be said, but it is. It is said thereby if there happens to be a self-conjured self that comes across this presentation and says, what the hell is this all about? Especially if it's new to it. Especially if it hasn't been exposed to Advaita Vedanta at all, or non-duality. If it tries to watch this and make sense of it, it may not pick up on it, because it may still need to hear this message regarding non-duality Advaita Vedanta expressed in some other way. 2x4 from, about, with, and around some other neo-Advaitins expressed in different ways, such as the birth name and birthright of Richard Sylvester, birth name and birthright of Jeff Foster, birth name and birthright of Paul Hederman, birth name and birthright of, what others are there? There's even females out there. There's so many. But they're birth name and birthrights, and they're going to continue in countenance. But we won't be able to number them anymore. It's going to get to the point of where they're innumerable. And does it matter? No. None of it does. Is it going to reach a certain point and it's going to stop there? No. There is no end point. There is no end game. No. There is no game over. 2x4 from, about, with, and around that which believes it's terminally unique, there is a game over, and it calls it death. It thinks that's the end of it. There is no end. Well, how can that be? How come there's no, how can you say there's no end? Because it never began. Alpha and Omega. No beginning and no end. To that which apparently appears to be everything and nothing. Inseparably so and not so. Ad infinitum. That's infinitesimal complexification. It never started, and it will never end. Do I need to know about that? No, you can't. Nobody knows about it. That's why you cannot. Nobody cannot do that because there's nobody doing that. Oh, but then there's this consciousness researcher, the birth name and birthright of the ex-NASA physicist Dr. Thomas Campbell. Well, I already told that story earlier. It's just a story. Theory of everything. Really. Everything cannot be theorized. Nice try, and you're going to keep on trying. Yeah, I know. You're selling the books, selling the videos, selling the books, having your fireplace chats. Yeah, we see that going on. That's fine. That's fine. Does it matter? No. Go ahead and conjure whatever you're going to conjure. Dr. Thomas Campbell, your big toe? Fine. Larger conscious system? Fine. Finite universe? Fine. But you know what? The absolute is appearing as a finite universe. It's not finally finite. No. Mm-mm. No barriers, no partitions. It's foreverness. The absoluteness of absolutely everything and nothing is inseparably so and not so ad infinitum. That is not a knowable. That's not known. No matter how many theories that an astrophysicist conjures, nope, it's not it. No finiteness. It's not finite. No finalities. No ends. You're not going to find it. It doesn't matter how many chalkboards. It doesn't matter how many equations you write on these chalkboards, and it doesn't matter how beautiful the mind apparently appears to be. It doesn't matter. The Einsteinian, the Stephen Hawking's, any of these minds that are so intellectually adroit can't figure it out. It's not the way that they say it is. No. Nothing is final. No finalities. Nothing is final. Nothing ends. And it never started. It never began. No beginning, no end. Just continual energetic movements throughout the infinite universe. Everything and nothing is separately so and not so ad infinitum. And you know what? A body-mind action figure can say, oh, no, it's ad nauseum, and type it in a Facebook page. Oh, ha, ha, ha. Very funny. Wow, you matter. You're clever. Wow. See? All that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how the body-mind expresses. 2x4 from, about, with, and around itself. Doesn't matter. Never did, never will.
If you're in the act of being identified as what you're not, the only way your head can entertain freedom is as that. That's the bondage of self. Yeah? If you're identified as what you're not, you're entertaining being free as what you're not, when the freedom is from what you're not. And if what you're not is not, how long will the freedom from it take to occur? The freedom from it is always available. It's like there's a great statement by Ramana Maharshi that I believe explains a lot. To me, it's like the first conception of the mental state, which is a presupposing of a non-existent thing that wants to get salvation for the non-existent thing. A presupposing. It's a beautiful way of saying it, because supposing or assuming something doesn't make it so, right? So, but in the assumption, when the mental state assumes you're a body, yeah, it presupposes you are a body. So suddenly, consciousness is occurring, and then the mental idea that there's a you comes after, but when entertained, that you is implied to be before, and now you think you're conscious. You think you're doing consciousness, yeah? You think you can improve consciousness. But in fact, if you look at it, consciousness is not volitional. Yeah? In other words, I can't choose not to see something with my eyes open at that window. Whatever goes by, I'm going to see it. Now, I can say I didn't want to see it after I saw it, but I can't not see it, yeah? If my eyes are directed that way. And I'm not taking any seeing classes ever in my life. I did not join any class where I try to become better at seeing. Yeah? It was just, and the same thing with hearing and feeling and tasting and touching. None of that experience demonstrates any thought or effort to be what it is, because it isn't doing consciousness, it's being conscious. But if there's a presupposing that you, as this action figure, are the one who's conscious, I guarantee you the sense you're going to have is you're unconscious most of the fucking time. And therefore, from that sense of unconsciousness, you'll want to become more conscious, yeah? And therefore, consciousness as an always available state now becomes a particular attribute you can have and you can lose.
Yeah, but the thing of it is, that which you're saying, well, I didn't want to see that. Although it was seen 2x4 from, about, with, and around that which we're not, which is facilitating sight. I didn't see it with my eyes. No, you didn't. You can claim that you think you're seeing it with your own eyes. No. Those eyes of the body-mind action figure are facilitating sight. They're not your eyes of your own. Nobody has eyes of their own to see anything. There's just seeing, but there is no separate seer of anything. There is no separate seer of everything. There is no separate seer of everything and nothing, both real and unreal, that's inseparably so and not so. So, anybody that says, oh, I saw that. Did you see that? I saw that. Did you see it? Well, see the figure of speech right there. The self-conjured self used this dual language of the English language to speak in this manner. To say, oh, I saw it. No, you didn't. The body-mind saw it, maybe. But, yeah. Do you think you saw something? Well, yeah, I believe I did. Well, what did you see then? Can you describe it? See? You see? You see that? Did you notice that? Did you catch it? Yeah. It's like a puppet. Well, what's maneuvering that puppet and pulling its strings? The puppeteer. That's what we are. We're the animating principle that takes the puppet and maneuvers the puppet and manipulates it. Yeah, it's a manipulation. But it's only a temporary manipulation. So therefore, the body-mind gets up, goes and uses the bathroom, the restroom, the loo. It goes there and it urinates, and then it comes back and it sits in a chair. So, did I do that? No. Did I think I did it? Well, that could be entertaining, and that's what's happening, apparently. What apparently appears to happen are movements and activities and actions that are claimed. That are claimed to, by, for, from, about, with, and around a separate self-conjured self that still believes it is separate from everybody and everything else, and it reinforces that idea to, by, for, from, about, with, and around itself via the certificate of authenticity. Yeah. Common knowledge and a popular opinion in society. Most self-conjured selves are living their lives day in and day out that way, because they believe they have a life of their own to live. That's why. Yeah, you believe you have your own life to live, and so you self-conjure the idea of independence and terminal uniqueness. Yeah. And so you're a legend in your own mind. Yeah. Keep on going that way. See what that gets you. Gets you nowhere. You're not no better, no worse than anybody else. Of course not. Every body, mind, action figure is no better or no worse than any other appearance of a body, mind, action figure. No. It's not even a game board, and nobody's even off of anything. There is no game board, and there was never a game. There's the apparent appearance of a ride. You can use that analogy. Yes, indeed. You can use the analogy as though you're a roller coaster, and all the self-conjured selves are going to ride on you as as the ride. They're going to take themselves to be the ride that they're not. Are you going to take yourself to be that ride? No. In other words, I really wouldn't use that analogy. That analogy wouldn't even be used. I'm not going to say that I'm using it. No. Because it's already recognized that I'm not a separate I, so why would I continue to speak that way? Mm-mm. No. You simply say this human corporeal body mind experience. This apparently appearing to be a personal experience, but it's not. It's both. It's personal and impersonal. It's both. Because it can be both. Temporarily. So. And not so. See, impermanence. Impermanence is temporary. For an indeterminate duration in space and time. Indeterminate duration as in years. Because if we are measuring time, and time is always discussed among body mind action figures, yeah. Well, because they believe they're living a separate life of their own, so they're going to take time and use time. Well, would you like to spend time with me? Well, let's go ahead and check our calendars and see. We can. See, planning for the future. There's nothing right or wrong about it. There's neither anything right or wrong about that. But it's just temporary. If it can be recognized that it's just a temporary thing, this idea of a future and this idea of a past, yeah, that's fine. There's a story right there. Yeah, every body, mind, action figure has a story to tell. Once upon a time, there was a little boy. Once upon a time, there was a little girl, and they were born, and then they were given a name, a birth name and a birthright, and they gave him that special name, and they told him, look, we're going to raise you in a world that's really tough to get through, but I'll tell you what, you have your own special name, you got a birth certificate, all right, wait, we'll tell them, dear, or the parents, or whoever it is that's going to, even if it's a single parent, which, by the way, is a lot more common than both parents, biological parents. It doesn't even have to be the biological parent. It could be an orphan. It really doesn't matter. All these identifiers and labels and names and categorizations immediately seized. The subconscious self agrees and says, you know what, there's a societal structure, and they must be registered, and they must have a birth certificate. They have to have it by law. By law, a body mind must have identification documents, because then it's not on purpose. It's not some great conspiracy to say, oh well, they're going to have a birth certificate so that we can track them down anytime we need to. Eagle eye, and Big Brother is always going to be watching you, and you better be careful and don't slip up or break any laws. Oh, they'll be reinforced. Pay your taxes, go to work, pay your bills, or else you're off the grid. You don't get those luxuries. Is that real? Sure it is. What's real? Paying taxes. That's very real. But even in the Matrix is an example of, well, you feel the Matrix when you pay your taxes, when you go to work. Morpheus saying that in the Matrix, remember? Morpheus did say that, a character in that movie, Matrix, the very first one, of course. You feel it when you go to work. You feel it when you pay your taxes. Bullshit. What are you feeling? Absolutely nothing. Because you see, that's the whole idea of governmental bodies and the Illuminati and all these other things, the conspiracy theories, all that. That's all crap, man. That's all fictitious, all made up, more conjuring. To entertain what? To entertain body mind action figures. Oh yes, we love drama. Let's get some more drama out there because we like to see people freaking out. Oh, we get entertained by that. We enjoy that. Yes. What else are we going to do? What else do we think we're doing? See, it's only in the thinking. It's just conjured. That's all that is. Does it matter? No. And yet, does it matter that there's a collapse? No. But what is the message of Advaita Vedanta? Simply as a fact, to simply state that there is not two of anything. In other words, it's another way of saying there is no separation. That Advaita Vedanta, non-duality, means not two. Neti neti. Not this, or not this, not that. It's not exclusively this and it's not exclusively that. It's both everything and nothing, inseparably so and not so. So many various ways to say that. What is and what is not. Empty fullness. That which is knowable and unknowable. Observable and unobservable. Real and unreal. Simultaneously. We are and we are not. It is and it is not. In space and time and not of space and time. In the world and not of the world. See? All these different versatile ways to express, used via the English language, to express the same message regarding non-duality, Advaita Vedanta. Many, many different ways. Innumerable ways. Always, all ways. Always, always. Indeed.
That's the claiming of it. That's what the mental state does. The mental state appears after and implies it's before. So they're presupposing a non-existent thing and then wanting to get salvation for the non-existent thing. Then he further states that if your spiritual practices themselves are reinforcing the non-existent thing, how can they destroy the non-existent thing?
And the non-existent thing is 2x4 from, about, and with, and around itself. 2x4 about, with, and around. And every other freaking pronoun that you can think of in the English language. Not that. We're not that. You're not that. We're not even a we. It's just energy. The absolute is everything and nothing, apparently appearing, both real and unreal, inseparably so and not so, all the time, in all spaces and in all times throughout the infinite universe. All spaces and all times, constantly. No beginning, no end. A body mind apparently appears to be born, and that's its beginning, and then it apparently appears to die, and that's its end. That's just an appearance of a body mind, a human corporeal manifestation. That's it. There's no meaning, reason, purpose behind that. The moment anything is given, any concept, any idea, the moment that that is given a meaning, a reason, or a purpose, that's separation. And that's not Advaita Vedanta. It's not referring to non-duality. When that is said that in that particular way, or various ways of terminal uniqueness, of individuality, as separation.
So that which you believe is being used to destroy the non-existent thing is actually reinforcing the non-existent thing. You're basically up, Schitt's Creek, really. Yeah. Because how are you gonna do yourself out of being the doer if you're not the doer? How are you gonna think yourself out of thinking if you're not the thinker? Come on in, man. It's fine. You're not late. Don't worry about it. So if you want to see the first movement of the mental state, and if you don't see it, you're going to be looking from it, really. So the first movement is to claim whatever it comes in contact with. It doesn't provide the contact, consciousness does, but it claims whatever it comes in contact with. So it's become in contact with consciousness, and now it states that it's the one who's conscious. It becomes conscious of seeing, and now it interprets that as being the seer. It becomes conscious of hearing, and now it interprets it as being the hearer. It becomes conscious of actions, and now it uses it to imply an actor. Yes? That's the activity of the bondage of self. And the bondage of self is an activity. It's not so. It can only seem to be so. To what is so, yeah? That's why I use the term selfing, because it's an activity. So if you look at it, it's the act of being identified as a self. Now, the way it sounds is, the verb is the act of being identified, and then there's a noun called self, but it's all a verb, yeah? The verb is, there's an act of being identified as a noun. There's no noun to be identified with, but there's an act of being identified as a noun. And it's just like, have you ever gone to a hospital where there's a ward that people that cannot stop running are in? Yeah, let's say they're just running all fucking day. Yeah, most times you're doing something, there seems to be a stopping point. You can stop running, yeah? But if the bondage of self was to a real thing, there would be a hopeless condition of mind and body. But what's happening is the bondage is an activity. You're believing the story that you're the thinker, the feeler, the toucher, the taster.
See? Right there. Catch that. Believing in the story. That's it. Right there. The self-conjured self believes in its own story. What story does it believe in? It believes that it was born, once upon a time that it was born. And then that it was given a name by parents that gave it a name. Or even if the state gave it a name. Or whatever. Okay? Something's going to give that a name. And something is going to identify that as something that's individual and separate. An individual person. That one day is going to become part of society. All the other conjured selves. And how are they conjured? They're conjured by registering a birth certificate to it. 2x4 from, about, with, and around itself. To reinforce. In its innocence. It doesn't even stand a chance. The innocent body mind action figure does not stand a chance of becoming that which it is not. It is being coerced, forced, conditionally applied, applications of conditions applied to it. 2x4 from, about, with, and around it. And it has no choice. It has to take that name, doesn't it? Because it doesn't know any better. It doesn't have to know. It's just being. There's another body mind action figure, a little innocent baby. It's just being. So is it wrong? In a sense. This shouldn't even be happening. It shouldn't be conjured. No, leave it alone. Let it be innocent. Don't give it a freaking name. Don't try to educate it and fill it with all these ideas of knowings. You're going to fuck it up. And you did. Nice going. You feel proud of yourself now, don't you? You know what I'm referring to. I'm referring to the authoritative figures, governments, institutions, and all that. It's not fair. No, fuck no. You gonna tell me that's fair? You better pay your taxes or else. Or else what? We're gonna take your car, all your belongings. Yeah, but I earned the money to get. I don't care. I don't give a fuck. You pay your taxes. Okay. Yeah, sure enough. Like a dog, drooping its head down, tail between its legs. Okay. Fuck that. Sorry. Doesn't have to be like that. It doesn't have to be that way. It really doesn't. Perhaps one day, fucking society will drop just as Rome did. Civilization, it was all fucked up. The same thing again. History repeating itself. Hell yes. History repeating itself again. Society trying to build up these empires. They're going to reach a point where they won't work. Why? Because they're not in harmony. They're not in harmony with the Absolute. The Absolute is perfect harmony. It's perfection. It's perfect harmony, perfect balance. Can't go against that. That natural flow of the Absolute. Everything and nothing, inseparably so and not so, ad infinitum. Yeah.
And in that believing it, it seems to be freaking so. If the believing is moved away from it, it will seem not to be so. Not because it changed its color, because you saw it differently. The same thing. The same thing can be false evidence, or it can be false evidence appearing real. It's the same evidence. It's you and I. It's like the movie isn't that good. It's the audience that makes it fucking so. We're the dreaming here. We're not the dreamer, we're the dreaming. It's an activity. So if you see selfing as an activity, the possibility that it can stop becomes available. If you keep calling it you, you'll try to stop every freaking thing else. But if you see itself as an activity, it can stop. The effects of the selfing. So when people get introduced to this idea, this is what I usually get. They call me up or they text me or whatever, and they say, oh, I've been watching myself selfing all day. That's not the selfing. The selfing is the feeling of being the one who's watching the selfing. Or they say the selfing has been driving me crazy. That's not the selfing. The selfing is the sense of being the one who's been driven crazy. That's the bondage of self. The bondage of self is that you take yourself to be a self.
Yep. The conjured self. The self-conjured
Is it so?
self.
No. Can it seem to be so? Yes.
Precisely.
Where can it seem to be so? In time. Would it seem to be so in timelessness? No fucking way. In time, it can seem to be so.
Mm-hmm. Temporarily, seemingly so.
So if you know it's moving.
Oh, wait a minute. Let's rehash on that one. Temporarily, exclusively so, though. See? That's where they fuck it all up. The self-conjured self fucks up by claiming that idea that they're permanently so and that they matter and that they're separate and they're individual and that they're terminally unique and they're better. And what goes along with that? Ego. Like this. It's so easy to tell the difference between that which has yet to collapse. That which is not has yet to collapse and recognize it is not that. It's just fucking conjuring it all. Here's an example of how it expresses. Hey, what are you doing over there? Oh, I'm not doing anything. Yeah, you are. Well, what did I do? Well, you did something you're not supposed to do. I did? Is it against the law? Well, yeah, it might be. But don't let it happen again. Does that sound familiar? Yeah. Oh, you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be going here, you shouldn't be going there. This is what you should be doing. You should be doing everything else that everybody else is doing. Because that's common knowledge and that's popular opinion and you need to go with that. You need to be actively engaged in society and you need to look normal while you're doing it, by the way. Here's what I'm going to give you the conditions, okay? You have to be this certain way, you have to appear this certain way, you have to wear certain kinds of clothes, you got to behave in a particular way as well. Oh, by the way, your behavior needs improvement. Your behavior needs improvement. You need to get back into reality. You need to get with the program. What is the program? Get with the program. Well, what everybody else is doing, you need to look normal. You need to look normal in society among everyone else. You need to look like you know what you're doing. And what you know you're doing, it needs to be something that goes along with the majority. The majority rules. You ever heard that expression? Yes. This is what you need to believe in, and you need to get with that program. Whatever everybody else is doing, you should try to do that. And these various situations you find yourself in public places, you need to behave in a particular way. You be sure you do. Don't go breaking any laws. Don't go veering off, getting into trouble. Okay? Don't do this, don't do that. Here's what you should be doing. Okay? It's all about that control. The controlling. The self-conjured self lives in a world of control. Because it believes it can control. Control what? Control its own life and direct it. Yeah. I have a life to live my own. I'm planning for the future. Because I'm going to improve myself. There's nothing to improve. To simply be and exist and live. Nothing needs to be improved. Everything is already complete, whole, perfect, just as it is. No. Self-conjured self can't leave that alone. It's not good enough. No, I need to be doing something. I need to improve because there's always room for improvement. How many times have you heard that expression? The self-conscious conscious self supports that idea. There's always need for improvement. It's never good enough. You're never going to be good enough, son, unless you work hard. So you need to work hard all your life so you can prove yourself to your manager, or you can prove yourself to authoritative figures, a supervisor. If you're at a job, you're going to have to prove yourself. You're going to have to prove that you're proficient. And you're going to have to do that every day, day in and day out, because there are eyes upon you to be sure you do. Oh, yeah. There's the average employer, and then there's management teams, and it's their job to oversee that the employer is doing what they should be doing, and that they should be doing it at a certain level of proficiency. Control? Indeed. Yes, that's control. We need to keep control of our company, keep it stable. Why? Because we're in it for the money. Yes, we're in it to be a strong company, and we need to uphold. But at the same time, we need to go about doing it a certain way. So there's the FCA, there's a Financial Conduct Authority. Okay, why is there a Financial Conduct Authority? Just checking to be sure we're doing everything by the book. Oh, well, you have to do everything by the book. What book? The book of the laws. The Financial Conduct Authority laws. Or all the various laws. Laws of the land. That's why there's so many lawyers. That's why they get paid so well. Because there's so many, seem to be innumerable laws to follow. You better know the main ones. What are the main ones? Paying your taxes. Oh yeah, that's one of the best, strongest, the best ones that work to maintain the societal structure. You got to have those taxes paid, because that's what keeps the economy going. We need to keep the economy intact. How are we going to do that? Democracy. Well, what does that mean? Well, go to school and you'll learn it. You should already know it. You went through school. You should already know that. You got your high school diploma. You should already learn that. Yeah. You should know better. Yeah, you should know better. See, it's all annoying. Yeah, you should know better. It's a natural thing. What do you mean better? Better than what? Better than somebody else that doesn't have an education? As I got an education? Is that the way it works? Is that what it means? Every man, woman, and child for themselves? No. But yet, there are some self-conscious conscious selves that will look at it that way. They'll perceive it like that. And then some of them get so fed up they go postal. Oh yeah, they do. They just snap. And that's the kind of society that the subconscious conscious self lives in. The paranoid society. Oh man, you go over to the United States right now in America, there's the right to bear arms. That alone, that in the Bill of Rights, that alone, the right to bear arms has already increased the dangerous environment. It's far less dangerous here in the United Kingdom compared to the environments in the United States, in the larger cities. Just take the state of Texas alone. 3 times greater. I mean, if you were to take, see, the National Rifle Association, NRA, is very strong in the state of Texas, where this buddy of mine grew up. And, oh yeah, you can feel the paranoia. Unless you're carrying too. Then it's like the Old West. Draw. 10 paces. Yeah, 10 paces at 12 at high noon. High chaparral. In a sense, it's like that, but of course in a modern setting, like the Old West. See how far back the right to bear arms went? In the Old West, nearly everybody, well, men were carrying. The women were at home, taking care of the home. Oh yeah, there's a lot of liberated women. Okay, wait just a minute now. What he say? Oh, he said no. Oh no, he didn't say that. Yes, the women knew their place. Oh man, don't put it like that, because you're definitely going to get in trouble. Especially if you're married. You don't let your missus hear that. Don't let your missus. You guys that are listening to this, oh man, see, there's so many different ways to. Oh, the staffies here again for more petty. No, stop it. Leave me alone. I'm trying to do a presentation here. Damn. What? What? No. Pit me, pit me, pit me. Attention, attention. I'm telling you. Anybody that owns a staffy, anybody out there happen to have a staffy, raised a staffy since it was a little puppy. For the past 10 years, never, ever did a day go by where there was not enough petting. Not enough petting. And you could time it. You could time it for an hour, still not enough. 2 hours petting, still not enough. 3 hours petting, still not enough. Constant petting all the time. Constant over and over and over again. Where does that stem from? In the breed? No, it's not just a breed. It's the fact that it was the little runt of the litter. It didn't get enough of mommy's teat, and it was a very small puppy compared to its brothers and sisters. All the other brothers and sisters had plenty to eat, had plenty of milk from its mother. But this one, the runt of the litter, no, he's going to have to catch up. But he'll never catch up in the regard of the petting part, or the attention part. Because not only did he get enough milk, it was ingrained in that particular pup when it became an adult that didn't get enough attention, and it manifests similarly with the human corporeal body-mind action figure. Yes, with the body-mind. The body-mind action figure that didn't get enough hugs, yeah, then it starves for attention when it gets older. See? Very similar with the canines. Because they're pack animals, yeah, they're like a family. Very similar to human beings, or the human corporeal manifestation, the primordial thing. But is that really all we are? You know, the Darwinian evolutionary thing, and there was a missing link, and it's has to do with natural selection, all that, no bullshit. No, it is not that way. It is not exclusively like that. No. But then again, see, you have your groups of Darwinists, and then it just branches off. You have your little groups of conjured self that conjured various ideas and beliefs. Oh yeah, there it is again, the beliefs, and there's the separation. And that's the big mess that the conjured self gets itself into. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Is that ever going to end? No. Doesn't seem like it will. There has to be an end to all that, isn't there? No, it's just going to keep appearing just a little bit differently. It's going to be thought that, oh, well, wait a minute, the human race is evolving. It's trying to improve because collectively we can make a difference. No. Mm-mm. It's just the same as a group of scientists trying to get together to control nature, control the weather. Keep trying. Bet you will not get away with it. I don't care how many HARP projects you have, high altitude aeronautical research projects, or whatever clandestine operations that are being set up in Area 51 or wherever, some secret governmental installation. And yeah, a lot of it's going on underground, and then you hear about the Greys, and then the human abductions, and it just goes on. And then David Icke stands up and he says, "That's right, I've been saying it for years. The reptilian race, they're trying to take over the planet." Oh. Wow, then the human race stands no chance. Then it starts to turn out like Star Wars. Oh yes, we need a Star Wars. We need to consider going up to space and create the Strategic Defense Initiative, SDI. Back in the 1980s, Ronald Reagan was working on it. You don't think they stopped right there after Ronald Reagan was president with the term that he went through? You don't think that project stopped? Oh hell no. oh man, it's alive more than ever. I mean, they're continuing to churn out things that would even make Steven Spielberg drool if he only knew what was brewing in Area 51 and these underground installations. Yeah, here comes the conspiracy theorists latching onto that one. Oh man, yeah. Let's talk about the Illuminati and all these other things. Conjuring. Yeah. Does it matter if it's happening or not? Of course not. Is anybody going to stop it from happening? Even if it is happening, top secret government projects, things like that, Area 51. So underground movements, the Hollow Earth theory, all of these theories, all these conjurings are great stories. Yeah, just to entertain what? To entertain the self-conscious self. To entertain itself. Because what else is it going to do? What else does it think it can do? What else can it believe in? Does it have to believe in anything? See? It goes on and on like that. Do we have to rely on beliefs just to simply exist and be? Do we need to proclaim our very existence? No. See, it's all of these type of questions that the self-conscious self asks. It doesn't even have to ask any of it. It should just recognize and realize that it's aware, it's awake. It's aware to being aware, it's awake to being awake. Isn't that good enough? No. It's not good enough with the self-conscious self. Because it needs to be in charge. It needs to be in control. It needs to be control of its life that it believes it's its own life to live. See? It's caught in that loop. Terminal uniqueness. It's caught in a loop of where I have to live my life in a particular way, and if it doesn't turn out the way that I want it to, then wah. Woe is me. Well, I'm going to have to, although I threw the toys out of my pram, I better get them to pick them up, throw them back in, and just keep on at it. Keep doing it. Playing with the toys for a while, throw them out the pram again, and wait for new ones to appear, so to speak, using that analogy. You see, it just goes on and on. On and on that way. So this message right here, Advaitins Nondualism, it's a very ancient message, but now it's manifesting as Neo-Advaita, Neo-Advaitin. Still the same old traditional message with the ashram, the ashram and the guru and the devotees and all that. But you know what? That wasn't even necessary. But that's just how it apparently appeared. That's how it apparently appeared to develop. Started out with the Upanishads and the Gitas, and then from there, in India, from the Sanskrit, it went into other translations of other languages, and now it's branching out, and then it's just simply manifesting and happening however it does. But do any of those Gitas and any of those particular Upanishads, all the different ones, and the meditative practices and the lotus stances, and not only meditative practices, but the isolation in caves and the mantras and repeating mantras over and over again, and all the yoga and all the different types of yoga, bhakti yoga, and all these different. All of that doesn't matter. What are you doing, self-conscious self? Do you believe you have to do anything? No, you're already being, so let it be. Leave all of this idea of control alone. You're already mingling with the absolute. What more do you want? No, but I want more out of life. It's not good enough. I want more. It's not enough. Yeah, I'm earning money, but it's still not enough money. I want more than that. Do you really? Do you need it? Is there a difference between a need and a want? Yeah. But you know what? Both don't matter. Needs and wants. Just to simply exist and simply be. That doesn't cost anything, does it? Well, of course not. Never did. You can't put a value on life itself. No, you can't. Nobody can. Oh, but the self-conscious self is going to conjure the idea that we can. Oh yeah, we want to control the weather. We want to control over the planet. That's what we want. We want control over the planet. Plus, at the same time, we want control over our own lives. We want our lives to turn out the way we want them to turn out. No, all of that doesn't matter. No. None of that does. doesn't. Oh man, there's so many ways to go about, you know, describing various, you know, ideas that are entertained. But it's definitely not about any meaning, reason, or purpose. To just be. Aliveness to being alive, the awakeness to being awake, the beingness of being a scene, the isness of isnessing, the dreaming of the dreamings, the activity of dreamings, energetic movements. That's all it is. That's the bottom line. And it's free to move about and manifest as absolutely anything and everything that's going to arise and appear how it apparently appears to arise. And that's timelessly, boundlessly, no beginning, no end, everything and nothing, inseparably so and not so, ad infinitum, the infinitudinal complexification.
Catch the heist before the heist, because before the heist, before the bondage, that's the freedom. The freedom is not that which comes after the bondage. The freedom from the bondage of self is an inherent fact. You are free completely. You may seem not to be, but it doesn't make it so. And you can seem not to be free here. But does that make you not free? No. The freedom is not an afterthought from the bondage. It's a priorness. You're inherently free of the bondage of self. So what would you do to get rid of or to get out of a non-existent thing? Absolutely nothing if you saw it as non-existent.